I'm just going to cover off three things today, which might seem very short, but 25 minutes I can guarantee you I'll probably stretch that to 30. And it'll be fairly data heavy, so we work in the data space and that's really what I want to get across, some of that landscape and some of that background of what's going on online. So I'll give you a little background about who Experian Hitwise are and how our methodology operates and works. Then talk about that landscape and what's happening in online retailing as we see it. Then I want to talk about a trend that's termed cocooning, and I don't know if many of you heard of it. It was first coined by a lady called Faith Popcorn, so you can guess which country she comes from, back in the 80s. And so I'll hold off until we get to that to talk further. So Experian Hitwise, Experian is the holding company or the larger business that bought Hitwise 2.5 years ago. It's a data business, is well renowned around the world for running credit agencies and credit reporting, helping banks and financial institutions with credit scorecards. So they're heavy on data analysis and data analytics. And so the purchase of Hitwise, which is data-driven business, but for marketing services, seemed like a very natural fit in terms of expanding their business. And Hitwise actually started here in Melbourne in 1998 by two young guys who had an idea about, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we could rank the top 100 websites and get it printed in the newspaper and build our search engine optimisation business, which was called Sinewave. And that's exactly what they did. And out of that, they evolved a whole lot of different tools from the data that they received. So to give you an idea of how this data's evolved and where we sit, if you look at the right-hand side, at the site-centric tools, it's Omniture, Web Trends, Google Analytics, etc. It gives you fantastic insight into what's happening in your own website. And I often equate it to driving a Formula One car, but with your helmet blacked out. Well, to a degree, maybe the windscreen blacked out if it had one. You know exactly what's going on inside your vehicle, what's happening when they change the downforce, when they change the wings, all sorts of different things, the impact that it has on your performance. What you don't know, though, is what's happening from an external perspective, whether you're running first, third, 50th, whether you're about to get passed by somebody, whether somebody's on a hot lap, and all those different things in competitive tactics. What Hitwise data does is it gives you that competitive intelligence. So it's like stripping off that black tape to actually see the context within which you're operating within your industry. Pardon me. And as David said, we track 3 million Australians daily and 25 million people globally. We work in 8 different countries: Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Singapore, the UK, Canada, US and Brazil, and hopefully more to come in the near future. We also track people's usage in terms of search terms, in terms of website visitation, where they go to and before different websites. You can understand clickstream and the influences in gaining your traffic. And we also overlay mosaic segmentation data as well. So we can actually look at different segments of the market and see how they function and what they do online in a different way. So enough of the wrap, the corporate thing. It's crowd participation time. I just want a show of hands of those people who have visited an adult website in the past 7 days. I've got one. There's something about there's something about Oceania. I was in New Zealand a few weeks ago and I had 3 or 4 people put their hand up, which sort of defeated the purpose of the conversation. But what I've just shown is that most people aren't willing to say what they actually do. Adult websites are responsible for about 6 or 7% of our online visitation. So there's a fair bet that probably 3 to 4 people here have spent a little bit of time on adult websites in the past week. Unfortunately, for whoever those people may be, we anonymise the data, so I don't know actually who it is. But adult is on a bit of a decline. There we go, drawing nicely. So the difference between what we say we do and what we actually do online is called cognitive dissonance. And so the data that we provide enables you to overcome that cognitive dissonance and actually get to consumer behaviour and what people actually do online, with no filters about, I want to make myself look good in front of my peers and colleagues. At the same time, we've seen adult declining. We've seen the increase in social networks happening at the very same time. So we've seen an enormous uptake and time spent on social networks, and that impacts then the share of visits for other industries as well. So some of the declines you'll see are not necessarily in real numbers, but as a share of the overall portion of what Australians do from an online perspective. So what do we do? How much time do we spend with retail? We spend about 5.5% of our time with shopping classifieds online, and 94.5% with other different things. If I compare it against some of the international markets, I imagine these numbers are fairly hard for most people to see, but Australia sits at fourth. At the top is the UK with 9%, the US about 8.5%, New Zealand 6.9%. And you can see off that chart the impact of the global financial global financial crisis was actually protected by last Christmas. So everybody was, this time last year, predicting doom and gloom for Christmas retail, but it actually seemed to hold up pretty well. But as soon as we got past the end of December, you can see some fairly sharp falls. The UK fell 5.3%, the US fell just about 12.5%. And in Australia, we saw a drop off of around 6.5%. So getting to some of the other things that we do online, this represents what we call the parent categories, and there's 18 parent categories. Computers and internet is the large blue sector, which takes up most of our time, and that includes search engines, social networks, software sites, and various things like that. Entertainment, humour, movies, photography, and a range of things. Adult is number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And shopping classifieds number 6. The interesting one there is news and media, and it'll become interesting why I think that's interesting at the moment. It's number 5 currently. Number 4 currently, but that may change in the near future. And here's the year-on-year change for industry. So you can see there is substantial change, and most of it's in a negative format. And again, I'll just highlight that I'm not talking about volumes, but I'm talking share of what we do online compared to October last year. So October this year to October last year. Computers and internet have seen substantial growth, as has food and beverage, and I've got a reason that is connected with cocooning about food and beverage. So 2 major impacts. The social networks increase has driven that, and that's increased 25% in the past 12 months, and search has increased just over 8% in the last 12 months. And that's driven by Google, of course, because Google's responsible for about 84% of the search visits that Australians undertake. And the second one is the global financial crisis. If we look at the bottom 4 who have had the major decreases, they're pretty much all things that back in the real head of the crisis we wanted to look at and understand. So we're looking at our banking situation, our stocks and shares, our superannuation going through the floor, just because we wanted to feel miserable. Government, we wanted to interact with government to find out how the government were going to help us and what was going on that front. And news and media, obviously keeping up with what was going on. Is it going to be as bad as what everybody's predicting? So some pretty natural major falls there that aren't in play this year.